Hey, how's it going, everyone? It's day 13 of my 30-day video challenge. Today I'm going to talk about 9/11 and all the anomalies that come with it. Um, so a lot of people around the world, especially in America, say that 9/11 was an inside job. And to a point, that's true. It was carried out by elements in our government, Israeli government, and to some extent the British UK government. Um, so I'm going to start out the beginning where the first plane hits the building, and that one really wasn't caught on tape, but there have been about an entire society of pilots and engineers and whatnot, well, the pilots mostly for this one, who have said, and I quote, "We've been pilots for 25, 30 years. We're expert pilots, doing it our whole lives. And we couldn't have hit those buildings at that speed." So what I'm suggesting with those planes is there was some form of drone that hit the buildings. There were no people in that plane. And it's obvious that that's the way things happen there, because that's almost an impossible maneuver. And there were reports from all the alleged hijackers. They were flying one-engine Cessnas, and some of the instructors said, "I was surprised they could drive a car, never mind fly a plane, into a building at whatever speed they were going." So that's one anomaly. Then there was the whole idea of the buildings collapsing due to fire, which had never ever happened before when a steel frame building, especially the free fall speed, which proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that there were controlled demolitions. And the reason they did this on one level was that the World Trade Center was an albatross. It needed asbestos removal, which would have cost more than the actual value of the building. And 3 weeks before 9/11, they removed all bomb-sniffing dogs from the building. Gee, I wonder. And Larry Silverstein, the leaser, upped his insurance against terrorist attacks. And he didn't go into the office that day. He used to eat at the top of the World Diner at the top of the World Trade Center. And he said he had a dermatology appointment that his wife made for him, and it saved his life. But he knew what was going on that day. There were congressmen and senators who got calls saying not to fly that day. Dick Cheney was put in charge of NORAD, and they were running an exercise the same day about a plane hitting a building. So they kind of scrambled everything up. They kept asking, is this real or is this exercise? So they didn't know that they thought it was all just that happens a lot in false flags, where there's a drill going on at the same exact time. And there are a bunch of engineers talking about the buildings falling at free fall speed, because even when I saw it the first time, I was thinking to myself, there's no way that could just happen out of nowhere. They just collapse on their own footprint. There's a lot of resistance in between those buildings. And then building 7 just collapsed. And Liar Silverstein actually said this. There was a fire in the building. It was such a terrible day of loss. I just said pull the building, which he meant demolish it. And it's not like you can just do that. It takes weeks or even months to set up all the chargers in the right places, demolish a building. So it was already set up to me. And I suggest the command center for 9/11 was in there, because a bunch of files were in there from something really important. I forget what. And then a plane supposedly hit the Pentagon. More lies. It was definitely not a plane. There was no damage to the lawn. And if it was a big plane like that, it would have caused way more damage than it did. And they confiscated all the security cameras from surrounding businesses like gas stations and whatnot. You notice when all these terrible things happen, the cameras are never working, or they're shut off, or they're taken away. Oklahoma City bombing comes to mind. There was a drill going on then too. And then, of course, they blamed it all. Oh, hold on, I got one more story about Building 7. You can tell it was all a script, because a BBC journalist was standing in front of Building 7. It was in the background, 30 minutes before it collapsed, reporting that it had collapsed. So what happened was they got their script screwed up, and they look like idiots, but nobody really called them on it. And it was pretty sad. So they blame it on Osama bin Laden and these 19 hijackers. And it turns out more than half of them were found to be alive. More than half of them. I mean, come on. And then you look at the slow response time to the hijacked aircrafts. They literally flew west quite a bit, and they turned around. Some of them were like in the middle part of the country, turned around, flew all the way back to the Washington D.C. or New York City. And the idea that they didn't scramble jets fast enough was probably because they messed with NORAD's head by saying there was a drill going on at the same time. And Dick Cheney told them to stand down, and no one had ever taken control of NORAD before Dick Cheney did that day. So it's fishy all around. And they blamed it on Osama bin Laden, who was living in a cave in Afghanistan on dialysis and shortly died the next year. I know a lot of people think he died in 2011 or whenever the hell the SEAL team supposedly shot him, but he was dead long before that. They had this video of him. You couldn't see his face, but he was watching TV, changing the channels, and he was on every channel. What they did was, if you look at all the Osama bin Laden videos, he looks so different. He's a different height, different beard, different this, different that, almost every time. And the woman that puts that out is a big Zionist. She's Rita Katz, I believe, and she runs site SITE, Search for International Terrorist Entities. It really should be called shite because it's just a bunch of shit. Anyway, what else happened that day was they used it as a way. There was an organization called the Project for the New American Century, which in 2000 released a document saying they wanted 7 wars in 5 years, and that this will be a long process unless we have a catastrophic and catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor. And same people came into power. They're all neocons. Same people came into power 1 year to the month later. No, sorry, a few months later. Then 1 year to the month after they wrote the document. 9/11 happened. Boyd Bush called it the Pearl Harbor of our time, of the 21st century, whatever. So it was a very, it was so obvious. Anyone with half a brain cell on active duty could tell that what happened on that day, it seemed like the amount of incompetence that happened had to be manufactured because there's no possible way that 9/11 could have happened, because they had jets at Andrews Air Force Base. They could have scrambled them immediately before it hit the Pentagon. And the planes were flying from so far away after they've been hijacked. It's almost impossible to imagine. Not one other day did that ever happen. It was like the day when everything went wrong. Everybody screwed up. Just completely insane. Cheney took over NORAD to make sure that those planes hit those buildings. And what happened through that was things like the Patriot Act, more and more restrictions for freedom. It was a classic problem, reaction, solution. And the only positive thing that came out of it was Americans came closer together on that day. But it showed that the government was, the high elites in the government were willing to sacrifice 3,000 people for the sake of getting power over the rest of us more than they had previously had. And and that's usually the first thing that gets people into conspiracy theories now, because there are so many anomalies. There were Qurans left at the airport everywhere. Like they were the Muslim equivalent of the Gideons, their flight manuals. It was so obvious it was a performance. I don't understand how anybody could buy the official story anymore, because it's just simply if you really look at the evidence, read books about it, go on certain websites, it's just beyond obvious that they wanted to do certain things. They couldn't just say they were going to do it. They couldn't attack all these countries, regime change them, steal their resources, destroy their history without having, like they said, a catastrophic and catalyzing event. And I know 9/11's been done to death, but there's always, oh, and all the wreckage is guarded by armed guards. So, I think it's a demolition company or something. I forget what it's called. And so is the Oklahoma City bombing wreckage under armed guard. So they won't release full video. They won't release anything. You know, it's just like Oklahoma City, just like the Boston Marathon bombing, just like the 7/7 London train bombing. They just never released the footage of the video, like Sandy Hook, like some of the other school shootings. The latest, one of the latest ones, I think it was, what the hell was the guy's name? Michael something or whatever his name was. It was the one in Florida, Parkland, Florida. They haven't released anything like that, and there are a few people, witnesses, who have not testified, but said one was a teacher saying that the shooter was wearing police or military equipment with a helmet on. And another person said that, Nicholas Cruz is his name. And another student said that she was with Nicholas Cruz when the shooting broke out. And he did not have any weapons on him or anything. So it just, once you question, and there's the Mandalay Bay shooting, which no way in hell was it carried out by one person. And I don't know, and if he had carried that out by himself, someone would have noticed him bringing up guns after guns after guns with 2,000 cameras in that building. You just gotta ask yourself. Then you find out that he shot a cop 6 minutes before, and they keep changing their story. You know something's up, and they keep changing their story over and over and over. And the cops took more than 45 minutes to get to the Mandalay Bay Hotel. So I guess it's kind of a gateway, 9/11 is, to more and more crazy things our government and people are capable of. But it also awakens you to realize that the world is not like you think it is, and the mainstream media is pretty much all lies, manipulation, and bullshit. But it is the archetype example of problem, reaction, solution. They wanted to do certain things, and they couldn't just go out and do them. They had to have an excuse. The excuse was, let's blame Osama bin Laden, who had worked for the CIA in the war against Russia, when he was working in Afghanistan, on to give Russia their Vietnam, as they called it. So it's always there's always something else going on behind the scenes that we're never told about. The information is controlled by 5 corporations in the media, so all the media, print, newspapers, it's 5 or 6 corporations control all the information. And they've even bought swathes of the alternative media. And the ones that are telling the truth get banned on YouTube, they get banned on other sites, Facebook. I might talk about Facebook in another video, and Zuckerberg, and what Facebook is all about. Also Google as well. And as well as Google on YouTube. I just thought I'd plant some seeds today about 9/11, because it is probably the most blatant inside job, including mostly Israel, who did help. And I think that Israelis have provided direct energy weapons to make the buildings collapse the way they did. But anyway, I got to go to work, so I'll talk more about other things tomorrow. Hey, tomorrow I'll talk about Facebook. Facebook is a fun topic. Anyway, have a good day. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed.